Hello, ladies and gentlemen, dear members of the CIS community. It's my absolute privilege and thorough delight to be able to introduce you today to the latest roundtable discussion, which will be focused on one of the two major languages of instruction and discovery at our school, which is English. So without further ado, let us jump in. Thank you very much. Maybe we'll jump in with the first question about the very first word you remember learning and speaking in English.
I've been told that it's two possibilities for it. My dog's name was Daisy, and I pointed at the dog and said dis. And so my mother's thought I was either saying this or I was trying to say the dog's name.
My mom tells me that my first word is mom.
I grew up in England, near London, and my mum says that my first words were, "Me want cup tea too."
My mom told me she's here in Hong Kong now, actually, and she said, your first word was mom.
I think my first word, according to my mom, was also mom.
What about the first work of literature that you read in the English language you can remember?
My favorite childhood books were obviously Geronimo Stilton and The Magic Tree House. But I think, post-COVID, rekindling my love for books, I kind of had like a second sort of phase, and I remember the book that started it for me was Normal People by Sally Rooney.
When I was small, I read my first chapter book, and it was something called The Black Princess or something. And then she was a princess undercover as an actual hero. And it was very cool because every time she became a hero and fought a bad guy, she would learn a lesson from the book.
When I was young, I loved the Wizard of Oz books. I remember those were my favorite series of chapter books, the first ones I read when I was younger. And then, again, the book that probably was the snap towards I really like books and want to think more about them. I read Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut when I was in high school.
The first series I read was Harry Potter in English, and I think that's literally the reason why I speak English today.
I grew up on Enid Blyton, and I remember vividly reading Five Go to Treasure Island, which is the first in the series.
The one
Yes.
that always comes to my mind is we read it in school, Lord of the Flies.
Oh.
And I remember reading it as a kid with a kid, but I was just thinking, this is so cool, and how crazy the book gets.
Have I think we could say, a very purposeful way of going about introducing students to the English language. And it starts in primary. But maybe we could just begin there.
In primary, I always think of it as three parts. You obviously want to have proficiency in the language. So those are, the methods are the foundational skills, right? You have to have the foundational skills to be able to access English, the language, right?
Yeah.
And then you obviously want to develop critical thinkers, because now in the world of AI and tech, that component is so important, right? So with that, and that comes through discussions or book talks or projects, right? And then of course you want to build, like what you're talking about, the love of literature, right? Like people have their memories of their favorite books, and that comes through the exposure to different books. Our library does a fantastic job of that. We have a really strong reading culture at our school. So in the earlier years, you're really cultivating those foundational skills.
Did you have any highlights of your time learning English in primary?
Reading books with a teacher, because it's very fun and everyone gets to ask questions and you understand the book a lot more. And there was a time in year one where my teacher would read the series Magic Tree House, and we would read it one by one, and I felt really excited every time she took the book out. I also like doing presentations because when you're in front of everyone, it's very nervous. But then afterwards, everyone claps and you feel really encouraged.
How about the secondary?
It's a lot of building off of what primary was building up to, as they said, the idea of learning all these different skills and being able to apply them more and more the higher up you go. We keep doing that as well, whether it's creative thinking, critical thinking, speaking, writing, all these different analytical skills. And we have 3 separate programs to help facilitate that. So it starts with the NYP Language and Literature program from years 7 to 9, where it's about not just analyzing but producing texts, whether it's reading literature, whether it's creating texts surrounding this to understand how authors create things for different audiences. It's about giving speeches. It's all these different ways to build skills towards our CIS-made program for years 10, 11 that acts as a bridge towards the diploma program. So how to refine analysis a bit more to build towards maybe essay writing or more complex speaking. And then of course there's the diploma program for years 12 and 13 where we offer literature and language and literature. And a lot of what we have from years 7 to 11 is to try and help the students figure out what they actually want to take for the diploma program, not because they think they'll get a score for this or that, but what are they actually interested in? What do they want to read for 2 years? What do they want to write about? And I think that's what's the most important of it all. And so you get students self-selecting where they belong and feeling really good about that and enjoying what they do.
So as a secondary school, what have been some of the highlights of your experience with English?
I really like how English is integrated into the community here. So again, as the president of the English Council, what we do a lot is sort of community-based initiatives or community-centric activities like workshops, events in communal areas here at the school. And I like how English is sort of really democratized and integrated into the community in various ways that isn't just a hardcore classic disciplinary subject.
We often talk about language as a kind of a door into culture. So I'm curious what we mean when we think about that concept with regard to the English language.
You have English as a form of communication. So
Yes.
you speak in plain English, you write in plain English, you communicate a message. But English opens up an awful lot more. So when I think of English, and I think of cultural elements of English, I think of walking through Leicester Square and looking at all the plays that are being advertised. And I think of going down to the South Bank and looking at all of the drama that's being, and new dramas that are being put on. And then I think differently about Chaucer and other pieces of English writing that if somebody passed it to me without telling me what it was, I'd look at it and go, I can't read this.
Right.
But it's English. So there's a huge, multifaceted depth of culture that sits with the English language. And I think it would be the same if you were to look at it in terms of Chinese language.
I think honestly, like the English class didn't just teach us how to write good essays and how to do citations and everything, because I did language and literature, right? So we got exposed to so many different types of texts. I think your class really just helped me broaden my horizons a lot and genuinely be able to apply what I'm learning in this text or in this film and be able to understand all these ideas and be able to see life after learning this, like through the lens of literature and through the lens of this English language I'm exposed to.
If it's not apparent from that, I really like storytelling in general in terms of how I teach. Like, and no matter what is communicating a story, I want students to be able to unpack it in one way or the other. And I think that's what's really important about being able to understand a language and then being able to transfer it across all these different modes that exist in the world, whether it is through comics, whether it's, I think we looked at like fashion at some points, we looked at all sorts of things. We looked at, and there was all these stories that are being told, and we read our way through it one way or the other, whether it was through reading a play together, whether it was through novel studies, whether it was through film, and then we made the connections. Not me, you made the connections. Your class did that. All the classes that I do, I'm just facilitating that. And I think it's being able to see those come to fruition is a really enjoyable part of teaching.
Is there a future for us who love English with the advent of artificial intelligence?
It frightens me a little bit to think of, I don't need to do my thinking, the computer will do it for me. I think it's still very important to be able to teach how we think and how we write, how we communicate. I think AI has lots of really good, helpful uses for us that can be done. It's been really good for feedback, I found, in terms of like how to teach essay structure. I've had teachers building bots for those kinds of things. It's really helpful, and it allows students to sort of realize just how to, there's a reason why I should be more focused in what I'm writing. It's da-da-da-da-da. That's really helpful.
I think it's also important because you have to think and have a train of thought to ask questions. And then when you ask a question, you type in a question on the computer. You have to be able to think about the question first, and then you Google it and then get the answer.
I think with any advent of new technology, when I was growing up, it was, we can search things on the internet. Now, what are we, kids don't need to go to school anymore, right? Because you can find all the answers, right? And that was when I was...
Libraries will never be a thing again. There's all...
So but it's always about, there's always the critical thinking component, the analyzing, the synthesizing, that component. Because you can get we all probably have used AI, you can get something, but it still requires some sort of editing, right? If you were to copy and paste, it will, verbatim is going to sound not like you, or there'll still be mistakes in it. So I think the importance is like teaching kids and anyone that uses AI, like the critical analysis of what you're asking and then how you're responding, and then what you're looking for.
I look at the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm communicating with purpose, before I start, I need to know what my end objective is. So I need to know, what am I trying to say? What do I want to express? How do I want to do this? And AI can be a very useful, provocative tool in achieving a more efficient final product. But I can't take me out of the equation. And if I don't know what I want to write about, then I will still not be able to prompt. As Meeka saying, I've got to know what I want to say.
I think about, in terms of, again, storytelling, reading great literature, it's all about the human condition, and it's about what humans have figured out about their own humanity and conveyed through storytelling, whether it's a fable about animals doing something, whether it's a very deep poem about terrible feelings they're having, whatever this may be, it's something that's real, that's coming from them. The robots can't do that yet.
I think I have to teach kind of kids and adults to be much more cognizant of what they're seeing, and to be more critical of the videos that you're watching. Is this AI generated, or is this real? Like, those are the kind of the deeper skills that you have to equip everybody with.
I think it's really interesting to see how AI has actually sort of counterintuitively brought this wave of appreciation for real human art. You know, like when people are looking at these big corporations like Disney or video game creators, like, oh, like that's AI slop, as people call it these days.
AI slop.
AI slop, yeah, for the internet cynics. But yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how people have been able to identify AI from real human-made work and have brought about this new appreciation for it.
Trinity, I'm curious, like, so you graduated from CIS a few years ago. Do you feel like our English experience prepared you well for life at university?
Oh, definitely. I think English, this course is the reason why I chose politics, because I studied politics for university, and I would never once have thought of studying this. And I think, well, going back to what I was saying about all the culture and everything that I learned from that, I think it just made me realize, and also he really always talks about like needing to understand context of every single work you're talking about. Like you're learning, you really have to learn about the history of it, you have to learn about how it relates intertextuality, as he says. And I think that was something that I took into my university experience, because I realized a lot of understanding literature and understanding these like modern texts is about knowing the context of it, and seeing it through understanding the contextual information really helps me see like a full picture of it. And yeah, I think that's the reason why I took it in the first place. And even with that, I studied some courses in literature as well in university, and it's all inspired by this course as well.
If there were a user of the English language from today or from the past that you really admire, who would it be that you would like to sit down with and have a cup of tea?
I was thinking Tupac. I think songwriters are so creative in the use of the English language. From a very like simple point, you're rhyming, like let's say, I mean you teach that in year one, but actually the way you put words together and make a song by yourself is, I think,
awesome.
So brilliant.
I went with Oscar Wilde. The idea of his own witticisms and the idea of how he saw the world. I would love to talk to him today to see how he sees the world.
I was going to say the exact same thing about about George Orwell, about how he'd see the world today. Having studied but also read in my free time many of his literary works, it's quite amazing to see how his use of the English language through his books have reflected not only the circumstance of his time, but how they're actually reflecting our current time as well. And you know, he was so masterful in conveying or signaling deeper messages about society, and just an author who I really admire.
I really want to meet Barbara Kruger. Just she's very, very masterful and like being very confrontational, very even like authoritarian in a way, just like telling you like, oh, about like very important themes, like what you were saying about George Orwell, like very important social themes, but just using such simple statements, and it makes such a big impact.
But I tell you what, I think that language is very, very personal. So I'd invite Jenny Joseph, who wrote my favourite poem, and ask her. She wrote a poem called Warning, which was voted the Britain's favourite poem. And it's a story about a middle-aged woman who says that when I get old, I'm going to dye my hair purple and wear purple hats. And it carries on through a number of completely ridiculous things that she's going to do, like be drunk in public and drink whiskey and all kinds of great stuff. And then it gets down to the end, and then perhaps it says, I should start now so people aren't taken by surprise. And I just thought it was a lovely personal response to English. And what delighted me was that lots of other people thought the same. So I'd want to ask her, did you know? Did you know you were going to capture people's hearts when you wrote it?
What a wonderful conversation, dear panelists. We are deeply grateful to each one of you for your contributions. Your incisiveness, your candor, your passion really have shed tremendous light on the importance of the English language for each of us at Chinese International School and for the central role that it plays in our educational journeys together. Cherished listeners, thanks ever so much for tuning in. We hope to be able to have these same conversations with you in person on campus sometime soon. And in the meanwhile, we wish you all the very best. Please take care.